member from Lakeland.
After 9 years, Canadians can't afford the costly coalition's carbon tax, but this Prime Minister doesn't care. He'll control it, even though 70% of Canadians and 7 out of 10 premiers told him to spike the hike. Now, Conservatives' common sense plan is to axe all federal taxes on gas until Labor Day to save Canadians 35 cents a litre. That's more than $955 of needed savings for Alberta families alone. Will the Prime Minister axe the tax on gas this summer so Canadians can afford the basics and maybe even a Canadian road trip staycation?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' lack of common sense approach to these things is about axing the facts. Every reasonable observer, 300 economists across this country, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, are very clear. 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back, and it's those that live on modest incomes that actually do the best, all the while fighting climate change. If they have questions, I encourage them to go and talk to the Premier of their province of Alberta about the fact that she gets more money back than she actually pays. That is a responsible plan to address affordability and to fight climate change.
Yeah, he's so funny when he gets angry.
The Honourable Member from Lakeland.
Well, after 9 years, it's clear that everyone but these out-of-touch elite NDP Liberals knows the carbon tax isn't worth the cost. Page 4 of last year's Budget Officer report says, quote, maybe you should listen, taking into consideration fiscal and economic impacts, most households will see a net loss. The NDP Liberals' inflationary tax and spend agenda makes everything more expensive and hurts vulnerable Canadians. The most common-sense Conservatives will axe the tax for all for good, but since fuel prices have surged over 50% under him, will the PM at least axe the tax on Canadian summer road trips?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister for Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, it is very clear. 300 economists across this country agree. 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back in the rebate. It is an approach that addresses affordability, does so in a manner that actually addresses climate change. Mr. Speaker, I would encourage
all lies
across the way to talk to her Premier, who has said it is a price on pollution that actually gives her family more money back, and she should go and have a conversation with Premier Smith, who just raised the price on gasoline by 13 cents with no rebate and no plan to address the climate crisis.
The Honourable Member from Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, our jet-setting Prime Minister has begun his summer luxury tour early, blowing through Philadelphia with his usual all-expenses-paid 5-star hotels and all the food and alcohol his entourage can take. After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, most Canadians can hardly afford a summer road trip. Will he adopt our common-sense plan to put $682 in the pockets of British Columbians and give them a shot at a summer road trip, or is he planning on putting himself first?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Once again, I would encourage my honourable colleagues across the way to stop misleading people with respect to the price on pollution. They need to look and read the letter that was written by 300 economists across this country that say the carbon price is the most economically efficient way to address climate in a manner that actually addresses affordability for Canadians. I would encourage them to go to talk to their friend Premier Smith, who said exactly that. Her family got more money back than they actually paid in the price on pollution. And I would encourage them, if they're concerned about the price of gas, go talk to Premier Smith and ask her to reduce it by 13 cents that she just raised it with no rebate whatsoever.
The Honourable Member from Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
That rhetoric won't put money in the back pocket of British Columbians. And while the cost of this jet-setting Prime Minister summer luxury tours and vacation soars, his carbon taxes and gas taxes are driving Canadians nose first into the ground. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Canadians are struggling to afford a simple road trip. Our Conservative common sense plan to give $682 back to the people of British Columbia, will the Prime Minister agree that his carbon tax is a road trip wrecker and axe the tax on gas this summer?
Man, I would absolutely love to go on a road trip with my family.
Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I am really astonished by the gall of these Conservatives who have the temerity to talk about the road trips of regular Canadians when they racked up $426,283 of the money of Canadians traveling to their own convention. The member for Central Okanagan was one of the Conservatives who charged regular Canadians to go to his convention. That is not right, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 summers, Canadians know this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. His carbon tax has hiked up the price of everything. Canadians deserve relief, not taxes. Unlike this coalition of convenience, Conservatives have a solution. Cancel all federal tax on gas from now until Labor Day, keeping nearly $600 in the bank accounts of Ontarians to spend on basic needs and maybe even visit with family. Mr. Speaker, would it be too much to ask for the Prime Minister to lend a helping hand to Canadians and take the tax off their summer road trips?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I'm curious the honourable members actually approach Conservative premiers across Canada who maintain their own taxes on fuel. Mr. Speaker, in particular, in the province of Alberta, Danielle Smith has increased the price of fuel by 13 cents and offers no rebate. I expect she knows very well that the majority of families receive more than they actually pay in a fuel tax, but facts don't seem to matter to a party who is committed to eroding all of the environmental protections that exist in this country and have virtually no plans to invest in the things that are going to help working-class families address the cost of living. We're in search of solutions, not fights. I wish they'd at least come armed with facts.
The Honourable Member from South Shore St. Margaret's.
Conservatives are calling on the NDP Liberals to axe the carbon tax and all federal taxes on gas from Victoria Day to Labor Day. For Nova Scotians, this represents $542 of savings per family this summer. After 9 years, we know the Prime Minister will jet off to surf in Tofino this summer.
Yep, pretty much.
Nova Scotians can't afford a summer road trip.
That's right.
Will the Prime Minister do a surfing cutback to help Canadians by taking the tax off the summer road trip?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, I know the Conservatives are excited. They think they found a new bumper sticker to put. But what would they say to that family? Not only are they taking away their carbon rebate, they also would be taking away child care. They'd be taking away their dental care. They'd be taking away their diabetes medication. So what they'd say in exchange for taking all of those things away from vulnerable people is to say that a false, empty promise. And that's what we have on the other side. Empty rhetoric and really attacking vulnerable people at a time when they most need help. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to stand with those who need help.
Will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost after 9 years. He's doubled the debt, doubled housing costs. He's increased spending by nearly 80%. What did we get for the money? The worst per-person income growth in the entire G7 and the worst mortgage debt of all of those countries. When will he realize that the more he spends, the worse things get?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have been talking down the economy for a long time now without understanding that Canada has the strongest macroeconomic performance in the G7.
AAA credit rating?
Our perspective is to put that solid footing of the Government of Canada in service of Canadians by investing in housing, by investing in dental care, by investing in childcare, by investing in the supports that Canadians need in this difficult time. His solution is for governments to invest less in Canadians for ideological reasons, to be there less for people when they need it most.
Less government, more money.
Mr. Speaker, more proof that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. He tells Canadians they've never had it so good. He doubled the debt, doubled housing costs, forced 2 million people to a food bank. He brags that he spends $87 billion on housing programs, and what did it get us? Got us the worst housing inflation of any country in the G7, the second worst out of nearly 40 OECD countries. Why does he always spend the most to achieve the worst?
Right. The right honourable
Well said.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think Canadians will take no lessons from a former housing minister who was in a government that didn't believe in investing in housing. Obviously, over decades, Mr. Speaker, the federal government had underinvested in housing, and it has led to the challenges we're facing now. That is why we are putting, and have been putting in service of Canadians since 2017, the solid fiscal position of the federal government to invest in Canadians, to invest in communities, to invest in housing, to help solve this challenge that people are facing around the world that we are solving despite.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he's absolutely right that we did not waste the billions of dollars that he's now put into his programs, but here are the results. The average rent for a one-bedroom when I was housing minister was $973.
Let's bring that back.
We built 80,000 apartment units at that low rate when I was minister. Now the cost has more than doubled. Meanwhile, Stats Canada reports that incomes are down $17,000 per family. Why are Canadians making $17,000 less to pay double the price for a home?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Here's the question Canadians should be asking the Leader of the Opposition. Given that Canada has one of the strongest economic balance sheets in the G7 right now, country for country compared, should we be investing to support Canadians and create housing with that solid balance sheet, or should, as the Conservative Leader is proposing, we cut programs, we reduce investment, and we do less for Canadians? We should be putting the strong fiscal position of this government in service of Canadians. That's what we're doing. That's what he opposes.
He's calling spending investing. He's using the wrong words.
Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister appeared to condone the insulting comments of one of his members that have reverberated around the francophone world. But it's all a bit of a distraction because the real issue is the funding of French language universities. So we don't look like barbarians again. Could the Prime Minister call for the resignation of the president of the APF and ask him to apologize to all our partners in the francophonie? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I wouldn't like to interfere with the poetic arguments of the leader opposite, but the fact is that it's been known for a long time. It's the word that our member used has been used for a long time. He didn't invent it. Our member didn't invent it. He did apologize and withdraw his remarks. But the fact remains, Mr. Speaker, that we will stand up to protect francophones all across the country and to defend French in Quebec, but also, and this is something the Bloc would never do and could never do, which is defend French outside Quebec all across the country.
Then I have
the Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, there's an expression in Quebec, I can't do anything that he doesn't do himself. So he's doubling down. He's laying it on thicker. He continues to condone comments that make no sense. He's trying to do something. He's trying to joke, but he's not very good at that. Could he simply take responsibility and shut up the clown beside him and call on the president of the APF to step down? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
All right, Bloc. All right.
His responsibility is simply to pick fights with Ottawa. Our responsibility as a Liberal federal government is to defend official languages all across the country, to defend French in Quebec, but also defend French all across Canada. We will stand up and remain to defend language minorities all across the country. But it shouldn't surprise anyone that the most recent bugbear of the Bloc Quebeois is to attack Franco-Ontarians. Everyone knows that they don't like francophones outside Quebec.
The honourable member from Burnaby South.
This is going to be a spicy day.
Canadians are struggling to put food on the table, and what are the Liberals doing? Well, they're giving $25 million to Costco and Loblaws. And what are the Conservatives doing? Well, the Conservatives, their leaders, too busy whining and dining corporate lobbyists in private dinner clubs. New Democrats have a clear plan. We need to tackle corporate greed.
It's private dinner clubs. Who cares?
And stop giving
it's not on taxpayers' dime.
To corporate grocery stores. When will the Liberals, when will the Prime Minister stop giving big grocery a free ride?
He's used more money from the government last year than any MP.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, not only are we continuing to move forward on our grocery code of conduct, but we're working on our project to make food more affordable through competition reforms. And now we're creating a national school food program, which is expected to provide meals for more than 400,000 kids a year and save the average family with 2 children as much as $800 per year on grocery costs. We're also ensuring the wealthiest pay their fair share. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, there are measures in the House right now that will crack down on predatory pricing, and the NDP has the opportunity to support us as it goes through this House.
The honourable member.
Is it just a coincidence that Jagmeet's throat hurts?
To take on corporate greed,
as Justin Trudeau's crotch is itchy.
As people struggle to fill their fridges, the Prime Minister is giving $25 million to Loblaws and Costco when they're making record profits. What's it going to take for this Prime Minister to understand these big grocery chains are raking in billions? They really don't need the handouts. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, not only are we continuing with the code of conduct for grocery stores, we're also making reforms to competition that should help bring prices down. We also are launching a national food school program that should help 400,000 school kids every year and allow families to save up to $800 per child. There are measures in our fall economic statement before the House now which should do away with abusive pricing, and the NDP can help us get those measures passed.